Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the United States Institute of Peace. It's a pleasure to have you here in a full room after a holiday weekend. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. I'd also like to thank those from USIP who made today possible and putting together everything. That includes Manal Omar, who is our acting director of our Middle East and Africa Center, and her staff. We would like to thank Layla Noraldine for her assistance, and also to thank Susie Hayward, who is our Director of Religion and Inclusive Societies, and her staff, who, she's not in here, but Melissa Nozel, who has been running around getting everything organized. And most importantly, we would like to thank our honored guest this morning. We would like to thank Tawakkol Karman for joining us today and for sharing her thoughts with us on the peace process, the challenges in Yemen, and the way forward for building peace. I'd also like to thank Mohammed El-Sanusi. He is with the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers, and they are one of the co-sponsors of today's event, and it's been their dedication and focus that's also made today possible. What I'd like to do is to give you a little bit of background on our guest. Tawakkol Karman has been at the forefront of the human rights struggle in Yemen for more than a decade, and began organizing protests for democratic reforms in Yemen in 2007. These demonstrations grew in 2011 as a pro-democracy movement, known as part, as we all know, as the Arab Spring movements that were occurring during the same time in many of the countries in Middle East and North Africa. She was a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011 for her impact as a women's rights and human rights advocate. She was the first Yemeni, the first Arab woman, and the second Muslim woman to win the prize. It's inspirational efforts of people like Tawakkol Karman, who act as guiding lights for many others across the world who are engaged in the peace-building struggle and trying to resolve conflicts peacefully and without the use of violence. I would like to take a few moments to share with you some of the work that USIP has been doing in this regard in a few countries. This includes work in Myanmar, where we've worked with religious actors and interfaith groups, thanks to Susie, to bridge societal divides and promote understanding and collaboration. To our efforts across the Middle East and Africa, where we work to empower and build the skills of emerging youth leaders so that they can guide themselves and their countries through specialized leadership and conflict resolution training. To our work in Yemen over the years, where, through research and action, we promoted the ideals of access to justice for all citizens, the better treatment of prisoners and prison reform, and inclusive and transparent dialogue processes for resolving conflict. Above all, in all the work that we do, USIP believes strongly that to promote nonviolent, peaceful means to mitigate and resolve conflict is an imperative for our world. As Tawakkol Karman said during her Nobel Peace Prize speech, resistance to oppression and violence is possible without relying on similar repression and violence. We know that throughout our history, human progress has been driven forward not just by government leaders, not just by state bodies, but by ordinary men and ordinary women who believe in the possibility of peaceful change, citizens who stand up against incredible odds and great danger not only to themselves and their families, to protect their own rights, their families' rights, and their country's citizens' rights, to extend rights to others. So with that, I would like to turn it over to another person who, as I mentioned earlier, this event today would not be possible. Please welcome the U.S. Director of the Secretariat of the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers, Mr. Mohammed El-Sanusi.
Thank you so much, Khalid, for your kind introduction to our guest speaker here and our honored guest, I should say, Tawakkol Karman. I would like to begin by thanking the USIP, the United States Institute of Peace, for giving us this opportunity of hearing from Tawakkol Karman, a person that is well known in the Muslim world and the Arab world and around the globe. USIP has been a champion, as we know, in peace-building efforts around the world, and we work very closely as a network for religious and traditional peacemakers, a global initiative that is sponsored and founded by the Finnish Church Aid and the Finnish government and the United Nations and other partners to empower religious leaders around the world, particularly religious and traditional leaders that are doing peace building around the world. So our hope is that to bring them and create a forum for dialogue between religious leaders around the world, as well as the policymakers and officials as well. So with that, we are so delighted to facilitate this particular event with the USIP, having Ms. Tawakkol Karman here in the country to hear from her and to really recognize her work around the globe, and particularly in her efforts to promote peace building. So without further ado, I would like to give the basically microphone to the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Tawakkol Karman.
Peace upon you.
And thank you, USIB, for giving me the chance to speak with all people who are so keen and interesting on the human rights, on the peace process, on the situation in Arab Peninsula and Yemen in particular. I will speak in English in the first, then I will shift to Arabic. So please be ready then to for your headphones. First, dear brothers and sisters, I will tell you the story of Yemenis, the great nation, the kindness people who dream for justice, for freedom, for equality, for good governance, for democracy, for peace. People in Yemen who suffered from corruption, from dictatorship. People in Yemen who suffered from wars, from terrorism. People in Yemen who suffered from poverty, from disease, from ignorance. These people decided to own the time, to own the period, to own the history, to create the future for building a new Yemen. Because of that, people in Yemen decided to make a revolution, peaceful revolution. People in Yemen who suffered from violence decided to make a great revolution, peaceful revolution, totally 100% peaceful revolution in 2011. Yemeni people, women and men, youth before old, women before men, all of them was hand with hand, went to the street, chanting, carrying the flowers against all the repression of the previous regime, of the ousted Ali Saleh, President Ali Saleh. He faced the revolution with all kind of violence, but the Yemeni people faced the violence with non-violence. All kind of bullets, all kind of bombs, all kinds of hatred. Yemeni people faced all these things with the chanting, just singing in the street. Silmiya, Silmiya, our revolution, Silmiya. Peaceful, peaceful, our revolution, peaceful. Both of them, all of them were carried the flowers in front of all the kind of repression and died in the street. While this society was an armed society. Yemeni people has more than 70 million piece of weapons. 70 million piece of weapons. And when they decided to make revolution, they agreed to throw all their weapons inside their tribes and went to the street peacefully. And because of that, they won in the first step of revolution. Because of that, they had the acknowledged, the recognition from the world, and they give them, the world give Yemeni people the Nobel Peace Prize. Because all the people was very proud of this extremism society and an armed society, and they saw women before men. They saw the peaceful method. They saw the tribes inside who made a lot of wars between them since years and years. But when they entered to the peaceful revolution, all of them sleep in one tent, eat in one tent, and die with each other for creating a new Yemen. So we are so proud that we made a great peaceful revolution, And that wasn't enough for Yemeni people. They decided to continue their peaceful method. When the ousted President Saleh left the power, Yemeni people made the political map, the best political map, the best خارطة الطريق, the best roadmap that explain what Yemeni people should do. And that was in the sponsorship of all the world, and especially of our neighbors, what they call it GCC initiative. All Yemeni people agreed, or most of them, especially the revolutionary people, agreed on this initiative, except one article inside the GCC initiative, which was the immunity, giving the immunity to Ali Saleh. So the initiative had a lot of articles, great articles that implement all the demands of the revolutionary people. It talks about unify the army. It talks about reorganize the army. It talks about good governance, guarantee the good governance and the transparency, and fighting corruption in all the institutions of the states. It talks about human rights. It talks about transitional justice. It talks about national dialogue that must gather all Yemeni people in one table, discuss all the subjects, all the problems. And it talks about the new constitution and election. So it was very clear map. And we as peaceful revolutionary people said, okay, we are agreed on this map, but except one article, which is giving the ousted President Ali Saleh immunity, not because that we are are against the forgiveness, no, or tolerance, no, but because we know that there is no peace without justice. And because we know that this president, the ousted president, if he leaves the power, and with all money, and with all power, and with all problem that he made for Yemen when he was in the authority, he will continue his bad rule in Yemen. And that is what happened now, when he led the coup against the transitional period. So in the transitional period, with all these things, Yemeni agreed to the GCC initiative and welcomed the sponsorship of all the international community. We welcome them and come, okay, we want to give a good example of a very sexist story in the Arab Spring countries, and we did. Anyone who knows about Yemen, he remembered that Yemen in 2012 and 13, and even the first year, the first month of 2014, we're talking about sexist story in Yemen, while the other countries in Arab Spring has some problems. So we did we entered to the government. We entered to the transitional period. We allow the ruling party that is led by the ousted president to be in the government, to have half seats in the government. And we allow the Houthis and Ali Saleh alliance to be in the national dialogue. And we were together, talking, discussing every day in the national dialogue for 9 months how to create a new Yemen, how to build a new Yemen. And we did the great national dialogue, a great national dialogue. After 9 months, there was more than 1,000 great outcomes. Again, that achieved all the value, most, not all, because our dream is big. So most of the values of the dreamer, which is justice, freedom, equality, equal citizenship, good governance, democracy, peace, and decentralization. Because was one of the outcomes of the national dialogue is decentralize Yemen to make it federal to 6 states that will guarantee the services to reach to everybody inside Yemen, and also to give the opportunity for all the people to share, to participate in the authority and also in the wealth. After that also, there was a constitutional committee. Again, also Ali Saleh and Houthis was members in this committee. And 4 months, they did the outcomes of the draft constitution was great. And we were just few steps to make the referendum for the institution, to make the election, and suddenly everything collapsed. Everything collapsed. Why? Because Ali Saleh decided to destroy the transitional period. The head of snake decided to kill Yemeni and to use the final card that he has. And he tried many times through the 3 years of the transitional period, but he failed. But the last thing is when he carried the Houthis and with support from Iran to occupy the capital of Sana'a and to occupy other cities. Until at that time, all things was collapse. All things. All our dream. The Yemeni nationalities was threatened. The Yemeni Republic, the Republic of Yemen, was collapsed by Houthi and Ali Saleh, and again with the support from Iran. They occupied our capital. They killed a lot of people. They arrested most of the journalists, human rights activists, most of the leaders of the peaceful revolution. They destroy the houses, the mosques, even the schools. They did a horrible violation in every field. And they didn't stop in Sana'a. They went to Taiz, they went to Aden. While that time, the president also was surrounded by them. The legitimate president, President Hadi, was surrounded by them. and also the Prime Minister. The President Hadi escaped from his home arrest to Aden. They follow him to Aden and send missiles to the palace and send soldiers and send militias to Aden. After that, the President Hadi escaped again to Saudi Arabia. And he called Saudi Arabia and Arab people to help him on facing the coup of Ali Saleh, on facing the coup of Houthis militia, on facing the coup of Iran. And when he said that, he didn't give something from his head. It was a lot of statements from Iranian authorities, from the commanders, from the political, from the Malali, a lot of statements talking about that they are occupying Sana'a as the fourth city that they occupied because they said that they control Baghdad and Beirut and Dimashq and now Sana'a. They said that they are building the Persian Empire. So this is why the Arab coalition answered to feel the threat, real threat, and decided to support the legitimate President Hadi. And there is another thing, which is there are a lot of people, especially in the middle of Yemen and in the south. There is popular resistance who refuse the occupation of Iran, of Houthis, and who refuse the counter-revolution of Ali Saleh, who refuse to occupy their cities. They are armed people. They decided to stop the militia of al-Houthi and to stop the Ali Saleh and his alliance and to regain their cities, to defend on their cities, and to defend on the values that they are or they made the revolution for. Special Taiz, because Taiz was the capital of the peaceful revolution. Special Azan, Ma'rib. So Yemeni, there is real refuse against the Houthi militia and Ali Saleh alliance from most of the land, from most of the people. By the way, the most percentage of the people, they are in popular, they are in Taiz and in the south and in the middle. So people from north came to occupy the Taiz and the other and Aden and other cities. So now we have three kinds of struggles against the Houthi militia, against the coup of the ousted President Ali Saleh, against the Iranian dream in Yemen. One is peaceful struggle. Two is popular resistance. Three is the Arab coalition with the President Hadi and with the government. For me and for the people who are with me, who made and who are still in the peaceful method, we belong to the first choice, to the first field. Peaceful, our revolution is peaceful. Peaceful, our country must continue, must rebuild in the peaceful method. So I belong to that kind or to this field of the struggle. Now, because I belong to this camp, the peaceful camp, I call and every day call the Houthi militia, even Ali Saleh allies, all of them, to withdraw from the cities, to hand over the weapons to the transitional authority that all of us agreed on, especially the government, because the government, the Houthi, was agree on them. And to transfer from the militia to political party. You can't continue your role you can't participate in the public life while you're armed and while you use violence to achieve your political goals. So please, you should do that for Yemen, for us, for the future, for the current. So we argue them to transfer from the militia to political party, and then to put the constitution to the people, have referendum, and at least in the last make the election. So it's when we talk about peace, lasting peace, building peace in Yemen, we have to make about comprehensive solution. Comprehensive solution. The comprehensive solution, by the way, even with this comprehensive solution, it is inside the GCC initiative. It is inside the national dialogue outcomes. It is inside the Security Council resolutions, especially 2216. So this is very important. When we talk about building peace in Yemen, we will not be able to achieve it if the militia will still has the weapons. It must be that the transitional authority has to continue its role to finalize the transitional period, the tasks. So they have to return to Yemen. They have to return to the President Hadi, the Prime Minister, the all cabinet has to return to Yemen to continue their rule and also to to achieving the goal and also to implement this, the whole solution. This is our method, and this is our روشتة for building peace in Yemen. And it's very important to know that it was a big mistake when they gave the immunity to the ousted president of Ali Saleh. So now it's very important to don't repeat this mistake. It's very important to prosecute the commander, Ali Saleh, and the people who made all this chaos, who killed all these people. But also, we should make this prosecution under the criteria of transitional justice. It's very important. If we allow the criminal to escape with its crimes, that means that we encourage him, that we give him the power again to make more crimes in the society. Finally, with all this description about what's happening in Yemen, I start with you that we enter to this point with the dreams of freedom, of justice, of equality, of a strong country, of rich country, of democracy, of rule of law. And we died for that. And when we decided to do that, we knew that the freedom has a very high price. Now, I assure you that this dream didn't stop, will not stop. This dream is continue. And we know that every great revolution followed by counter-revolution. And we know how America, how West suffered a lot to reach to this moment of democracy and freedom. And we know how many counter-revolutions that you faced. And we know that it takes many hundreds of years to reach to your democracy and human rights. And we know also that we will reach to the moment of democracy and peace and justice and stability and peace in our countries. They see it is so far, but we see it is so close. It's very, very close. You will see, and I invite you from now to visit a great Yemen. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I didn't speak Arabic.
You did very well in English, so you don't need to speak Arabic. Yeah. So thank you so much, Tawakkol, for this remarkable presentation. Now we have about 30 minutes for questions and answers. We do have cards, I think, that we're going to be distributed to everyone. So please, if you do have a question, please write it down, and we will... Here is, yes, and Susan will help us to sort them out. But Tawakkol, I want to begin by asking you a few questions, in fact. And all of us basically see what is going on the ground in Yemen. And I want to begin the discussion here and the question by the humanitarian situation in Yemen. The United Nations describes the situations in Yemen as a humanitarian catastrophe, and says that more than 70 organizations are working to help those in need face blockades and inspections by the coalition. So my question to you is, what can be done to bring more attention to the humanitarian crisis in Yemen, and what can be done to help those in need? Well, that's
Of course, yes. Yeah. Of course, by the way, the humanitarian cases in Yemen is very sad, is very catastrophe, not just because of the war. It was even when the Ali Saleh was as a president, in the position as a president. And it was a lot of report that describe Yemen, well, said that they will describe Yemen as a failure country. So now the situation is very, very, very bad. It's a disaster. It is a catastrophe, really. But the United Nations and all the human rights, all the societies, all the organizations who are, I'm going to speak in Arabic, by the way. I forgot all my English.
So,
Okay.
so everybody can just use their headphones. Just give
Okay.
them for a second.
The humanitarian situation is very catastrophic. It really is a disaster. This situation, it has been like this since the recent years. During the ousted President Abdullah Saleh was like this, and it has been like this until during this revolution, and it's still like this. What's the solution? What can be done? The solution is to help Yemeni people, to reach them the humanitarian aid, those who suffer and live in a dire situation. There is also another situation we can do it in parallel, and to stop the reasons behind or the means behind these sufferings. There was this suffering, and it was Ali Abdullah Saleh was the main reason. So we could stop all the corruption, all the economic situation, what happened there. But we still are like this. So for now, we have to stop the Houthi militia and Ali Abdullah Saleh in taking revenge of the Yemeni pupils. The humanitarian situation is because it's not just about food and drink. It's about medicines, and also it's about killing people. Cities are being razed. Houses have been destroyed over the people. People found no shelter. They don't find any place to. They can't find medicines, running water, food. Who is the reason? The reason is the war has been declared by Ali Abdullah Saleh and Houthi. And this is being fed by Ali Abdullah Saleh and Iran. We are now need to stop this war. We are talking about humanitarian aid. It should not be separated from what happens there, which is the war. And the war cannot be stopped without a list of solutions that we have to apply, and I talked about them. So no patch will solve this. We should find essential solutions. There's some international organizations facing hard. They cannot reach. They cannot deliver the aids to the Yemeni peoples. How can we make sure that the United Nations and other agencies, aids and reliefs can reach the Yemeni people? Anyone can give some facilitation and help in providing these helps and supports to the Yemeni people? It's very important, yes, to open the ports. It's very important to open the ports to reach food and medicines. All the ports should be opened. But also the war should be stopped. You should not talk about just partial solves. The ports should be opened, the war should be stopped. An inclusive, comprehensive solution which could be disarming the militias, and that's the Houthi, and they can turn into a political party and participate in the political process. And they already participated in drafting the constitution, and they agreed on it, and then going for a referendum for this constitution, and then there will be elections, local elections, regional elections, and also national elections. So you could go to the next question is, we would like you to address the national dialogue. You mentioned the national dialogue, and you said that it was a positive step towards in 2011. But the question is, and I'm going to ask in English. اليمن كان لها دور كبير بعد انتفاضة 2011 وبعد مشاركة هناك الآن مجامع كثيرة وتعرفين هذه المجامع. أنت كشخص حاصل على كيف يمكن لنا أن نقوم بالحوار بين المجامع المختلفة والبدء بها حتى يكون هناك حل سلمي بدل ما يكون هناك حل عسكري. So how can we again go back for the initiative for an initiative for dialogue which can replace the war and conflicts, so a peaceful situation comes? How can we do this? من الأهمية بمكان.
The implementation is very, very important. One of our mistakes was that the tasks in the GCC initiative. We didn't, not we as people, we as the transitional authority. Yes, I am not one of them, but I blame them that they didn't implement it at all. So it's very important to implement everything. Now in the national dialogue also, it's very important to implement. If we just يعني نتقفز يعني نتقفز من حوار لحوار jump. If we just jump from dialogue to dialogue to dialogue and without implementation, we will not do anything. So we did a great dialogue. We did a great يعني we have a great outcome of the dialogue. We have a great resolution 2216 on the Security Council resolution. So we need to implement. So if we talk about another dialogue, I don't think that we will have يعني any progress. But the dialogue must be how to implement. Not to have another result. No, how to implement. We have now, there is a result that you should hand over the weapons. So the weapons must go to the legitimate authority. How? This is how, just the way. This is the dialogue. And if we make the dialogue again, we will lose time and the war will continue.
I see.
Yeah.
So I want to move a little bit from the situation in Yemen to ask you generally a question that related to Islam and how actually the role of Islam played a major role in shaping your own efforts to advance peace. يعني ما هي كيف الإسلام حفزك على هذا العمل؟
I believe that Islam, as Christian, as Judaism, all of them they play a good role, and all of them they don't have any conflict between the values that I believe on. All the religions has a real relationship with peace, with love, with coexistence, with accept each other, with fighting corruption. I believe that every religion has to do its rule, and every religious has to do their rules on fighting corruption and fighting dictatorialism. So I believe in all religion as the values for achieving the value that we made our revolution for.
Great. So we have only 15 minutes left, so I want to go back to call it here, and you can help us with the audience questions, please.
Thank you very much to everyone who submitted questions, either here or those that were submitted through the webcast. We have over 20 questions, which is excellent, very engaged audience, very interesting questions. So what I've done is I've grouped them. I'm going slower so that the translation can go. Okay. So I'm going to group these into the different categories. The first category relates to the coalition's role in Yemen. And I'm going to ask a couple two-part questions, and then perhaps if you could just answer it collectively. There are different questions related to the coalition role. One is, what is your view of the Saudi airstrikes and blockades that are affecting the humanitarian assistance? A related question is, last week, President Obama met with the King of Saudi Arabia, where he expressed support for the Saudi-led coalition, but also his concerns about the many civilian deaths. Do you share these concerns? What is your position on the Saudi-led coalition and the escalating activities in Yemen? And then to related questions to those two initial questions are, have the military strikes helped draw the Houthis to negotiations? And what role do you believe the Saudis, the Emiratis should play in the rebuilding of Yemen? So that's one group, and then when we're done with that, I will go through the next groups.
Yeah.
So all this group is talking about Saudi and its role in Yemen. As I said, unfortunately, that the Arab coalition that led by Saudi came as a result of calling from the President Hadi to help him to help Yemeni to face the militia. But again and again, I belong to the peaceful method. So I believe that we can face violence by non-violence. So we have a lot of fields that people that they are facing the Houthi, the coup against Yemen, again the peaceful method that I belong to, the popular resistance and the Arab coalition with the leading of Saudi and calling of with President Hadi. But also I have a lot of statements condemning the Arab coalition when they attack the civilian. A lot of statements against that. So I call them that they have to commit, they have to fulfill on the قانون الإنساني, the humanitarian law, صح? The humanitarian law. It's very important. But also, I always talking about the militia. So, look, most of the questions was about the attack of Arab coalition or of Saudi coalition. And I faced a lot of questions of this. But unfortunately, I didn't hear, not just here in many, I didn't hear the questions about what Houthis militia did in all the cities. So it's very important to say, to condemn all the mistakes. It's very important to condemn all the crimes, not just the Saudi and not just the Houthi militia.
The second group of questions.
Second group relates to the role of women, and one question related to that is, what should be the ideal role of women in the peace process? And what are your views of the draft constitution, given 30% quota for women failed and rights of individuals are subsumed under the rights of the family? And as an important, this is also, I'm going to give you the one that includes youth also. As an important demographic, what role and support can young people play to build a more peaceful society in Yemen?
دور المرأة اليمنية كان دورا رائدا.
The women role was a unprecedented role, a very important. The women did a great. They rose up against dictatorship, political dictatorship, and also the religious dictatorship, and also the dictatorship of the traditions. In her revolution in 2011, the women stood against these three dictatorships when they asked for freedom, equal rights, and liberty. These revolutions was led by women. They made a very big victory and reached us to the transition period, and then from there began to reaching us to another level. In the transitional period, the women in Yemen was in the highest positions for making decisions about this transitional period. They are just about something like 25 to 30 minutes percent, and then sometimes more than 30%. In the preparatory committee for the preparation of drafting the law, and the national dialogue conference where the decisions are made about the constitution and the future of the country, women were there and strongly in the committee for drafting the constitution. Even in the government, they weren't 30%, but they were much better than. And now they are much better before the revolution. The women have been there in making process of decision making. But of course, it was not satisfactory for us as women, because we do believe that the new era or a new time has came for women after suffering from all these catastrophes, from these disasters. The country should go back for peaceful and for reconstruction. But by that time, we don't want the women to be marginalized again, and men to rule. These things should be changed. We always been asking for more and more rights for women. The outcomes of the national dialogue and the constitution, they stipulated that women have equal rights as a citizen. There is no difference between men and women and the citizens. And then as for women, because they have been marginalized for all this period and in the society and we are now passing this period. So the new constitution, the draft constitution, stated that there should be a quota for 30% of women, representing women in all levels of government and powers. The constitution also guarantees against underage marriage, and then this is the violation of children's rights, especially about we've mentioned this, the underage marriage. So the constitution is the constitution we are talking about, which is now Houthis are rebelling against it, and Ali Abdullah Saleh are fighting it. It was a constitution that guarantees the equal rights for all Yemeni people. It was a guarantee that guarantees the democracy and fighting corruption and good governance and human rights, women's rights. It was a constitution. Well, we have some shortfalls. We know that it has some shortfalls. As human rights activists, we wanted better, more, but it still represents much of our dreams for a civil state where law rules.
Should be the role of the United States in bringing the situation in Yemen to a peaceful conclusion and to prevent humanitarian challenges to the country and refugee flows.
دور الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
The role of the United States, especially, they do not make the same mistake during the transitional period. It should sponsor and to see to live to see and to sponsor the peaceful construction, the political process, to sponsor the process, the political process, and guaranteeing the reconstruction of Yemen. It should help and support Yemenis in building a civil state based on decentralized country. We do need this kind of system. What we want from the United States is a great bigger role in every aspect.
relate to the Houthis' role moving forward? Will they be accepted as a political party given what has happened thus far? And what do you think is the most important aspect for reconciliation, community reconciliation post-conflict, especially the former combatants and Houthis?
We cannot go for a peaceful without asking or forcing the militias and combatants to come back for the civil society and to participate in the political process, to try to reach their goals by political means. So they have to get disarmed and get out of the cities. So but a militia, while having all these weapons, they cannot change into political process, participate in the political process. They should first disarmed, and then they can change into a political party. This is very important. So even up to now, we ask and urge and plead our brothers in militias, in Houthi, to change into political party and participate in the political process. And for this, they should disarm, take and go back to their places, so we can reconstruct the country after all this destruction.
To closing remarks, and this is a personal question
Yes.
for you. You say peace in Yemen is so close,
Yes.
but how do you find the strength and courage to keep going when the price is so high and the odds are seemingly against you?
Oh my God. I'm always
optimistic.
the dream of the people in my state, in my country. And I always believe in the will of them. And I always believe on myself and on the others. Because of that, I carry the flag of taking the initiative, taking the responsibility. I feel always that I am the responsible. I am the one who should give the solution. Because of that, I didn't care. I didn't think what will happen to me and what will happen to my family, to my kids. Even when they arrested me, even when they tried to kill me, even when they occupied my house. The militia occupied my house, in the September 21st. The first house that they occupied, it was my house. And Ali Saleh arrested me, threatened my family, etc., etc. But always I think, oh my God, he think that he will kill my idea? Do they think that if they do something wrong, something to me, that I will stop? No. I should spread my feel, I should spread my soul, I should spread my will, my insisting to the people. So it's the courage for people. I take the inspiration from the people that I feel that I am responsible. I am the one who is responsible to save them. So always telling myself, telling my kids, telling my colleagues, telling the youth, telling the women, be responsible. Be in the front line. Don't afraid from anyone, because you are the one who should save your country. Yes.
Thank you, Tawakkol. And thank you, Mohammed, for moderating
so
today's
much.
event. Thank you to everyone.
And sorry for my English.
Your English is wonderful.
Wonderful.
I just have a few last parting comments. First of all, for many of us who've been following Yemen and were able to travel to Yemen in the past, we hope for a peaceful resolution, a time that we could join our friends in Yemen. I remember fondly the time when I first arrived in 2011 and went to Change Square and met with the children and the women there, and it was a pleasure to be there, and I hope we'll be able to be there again, and peace will come to your country, and it'll be even closer than we think. After today's event, I'm sure that many of you, like me, look to what can you do, however small it may be, to build peace. September 21st is International Day of Peace. Who knew that? Now you all do, so now you can all raise your hands. And through the Peace Day Challenge, we aim to raise visibility of International Peace Day, to frame peace as an alternative to the violence that we see daily in the news, and we encourage individuals and communities across the U.S. and beyond and over the world to take action for peace. So you can share your peace at #PeaceDayChallenge, and then to sustain it during that day and beyond. And you can go to www.peacedaychallenge.org. It's www.peacedaychallenge.org. The hashtag for Twitter is #PeaceDayChallenge, and get involved in that way. And you can do that today. You can do it right now if you have your phones. So thank you again for coming, and again, thank you, Tawakkol, for your comments. And please, if you would be willing to fill out the evaluation cards that were handed out and provide them to Melissa on your way out, we'd be very grateful. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.